Thank you for choosing THV 11 tonight. I'm Brooke Buckner. We start with an active investigation in North Little Rock. Just in the last hour and a half, we learned a shooting took place in the 200 block of Prairie View Drive. As of right now, there is no word if anyone was hurt, but we will update you as we learn more. Meanwhile, in Conway, the district school board met to discuss the future of Superintendent Jeff Collum. This as many parents and former teachers are asking for him to be removed. While we were told originally that public comment would be allowed, it was solely an executive session. THV 11's Maya Ellison was at the meeting tonight and shows us the outcome and thoughts from both sides.
There's been a lot of things that were involved in regards to transparency in the district and the priority that the district has presented in relation to education for our children.
Those concerns leave Conway School District parents and staff at wit's end as they await a decision after Sunday's special meeting on what the future holds for Superintendent Jeff Collum.
Teachers started having a problem with morale, and they would express to me their frustration and their feeling of lack of support from administration, their fear of retaliation if they spoke out that they were unhappy or that there were things they were concerned about.
Tammy Marsh, who ran for school board member during this year's election, says other issues have been presented but ignored, like requests to bring in a reading specialist to improve reading scores.
We've been waiting at least for a year and a half on the reading specialist issue, and nothing has happened.
Parents like Wendy Francis tell me these issues have come to a head, leaving them to push for the removal of Superintendent Collum.
If you are the leader, then the people under you fail, it still falls to you as your responsibility. So that's why I believe a lot of the community is looking for a change, or at least a redirection.
It was almost 2 hours and 45 minutes later when directors returned from their executive session with the final decision.
The first motion I want to ask for is to approve the separation agreement between the district and Jeff Collum. Is there a motion on the table?
Motion made.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
We separated from him, paying him out about $460,000, and it was an agreement between he and us and our attorney.
Taking his place, directors named Deputy Superintendent Jason Black as interim.
He's willing to step up and do some things that we've been missing, that are needed, that our educators need, that our students need, that our community need, a healing process.
In Conway, Maya Ellison, THV 11 News.
Thank you, Maya. Director Franklin says a formal search is set to take place in the future. Staying in Conway, as city officials have rolled out a new pay plan for firefighters after months of wage talks. It's a story we first brought you earlier this month when we learned crews there earn roughly 30% less than their peers in similar cities. City leaders took action this week to change that. During Tuesday's meeting, council members adopted a new pay scale for firefighters, as well as a 2% raise for a majority of positions within the department. But members made it clear these changes are just the beginning of the conversation. Those increases take effect July 1st, pending budget approval.
Happy Sunday. We have been tracking some storms moving through portions of northern and north central Arkansas. Coming out of Missouri, there's been some severe weather to our north. Now, some of those storms were strong enough to prompt some severe thunderstorm warnings for extreme northern Arkansas as they've worked their way further south, losing a little bit of its steam. We have still seen a few special weather statement tags for some of these storms. So peak wind gusts have been anywhere from 40 to 60 miles an hour with these storms. That has been the main hazard that we've been tracking through the evening. Now, as we continue, these storms you see are moving their way through the Little Rock metro, but they're losing a lot of their steam. I do think before we see them completely work their way into southern Arkansas, those storms are going to fall apart over the next couple hours. But we have seen a few storm reports in northern and northwestern Arkansas, mainly of thunderstorm wind damage again from those strong storms. More of the reports to our north in Missouri, again where those storms were a bit stronger. For the start of your work week, could still see some spotty storms on Monday. Things drying up by the middle part of the week. A detailed look at the week ahead, though, is coming up later on in the show.
Thanks, Simone. The Senate continues to hash out President Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. Late last night, the Republican-led Senate advanced the bill in a 51-49 vote, moving it one step closer to passage. The legislation extends tax cuts from President Trump's first term, removes taxes on tips and overtime, and increases spending for defense and border security. However, two Republican senators, Tom Tillis of North Carolina and Rand Paul of Kentucky, are joining Democrats in opposing the advancement of the bill.
You can put as much lipstick on this pig as you want. This will be a political albatross for the Republicans.
Why?
Because it takes 16 million Americans off of health care coverage with cuts to Medicaid and cuts to the Obamacare marketplace.
Are you going to vote again for final passage if it looks like this?
What I'm voting for is a border security measure, $80 billion, $12 billion to reimburse states like mine. I'm voting for $150 billion that will go to our Department of Defense.
The president has repeatedly told Congress he wants to see his big, beautiful bill passed by the 4th of July. Victim support services could also face challenges due to federal funding cuts. One of those is the Northwest Arkansas Women's Shelter. It serves thousands of women and children through emergency housing, advocacy, and a 24/7 crisis line. Director Elaine Jackson says the shelter has lost about 65% of its state and federal funding and expects more cuts this fall.
We've been really preparing to make sure we're as best suited as possible to handle these cuts, but we're not sure how much funding we may or may not receive, and it's quite likely we will receive none at all.
The shelter has launched the Restoring Hope campaign to raise more than $500,000 to help keep services going. Well, June is Pride Month, and this year marks a milestone in the fight for LGBTQ equality, as 10 years ago, a U.S. Supreme Court ruling legalized same-sex marriages across the country. So while it may feel like we've reached the finish line for marriage equality, some fear that right could still be taken away, especially after other recent rulings from the court. Tonight, THV 11 executive producer Lauren Johnston looks back on the battles won and the possible fights still ahead.
Pride Month is a celebration of the LGBTQIA+ community in all its forms. It's a time to make a statement, highlight show-stopping creativity, and fierce talent. It's a party. It's also...
Pride is about resistance. Pride is about a fight.
A riot, more like it. That's how the first Pride really began. In June 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn, a not-so-underground gay bar in New York City. Raids like this happened all the time, but on that June night in '69, people turned the Stonewall raid into a riot, which turned into a gay rights revolution. In the decades since, the fight, the riot for equality hasn't stopped in America or in Arkansas, especially when it comes to the legal right to marry who you love.
The THV 10 o'clock difference with tonight's big story, Your Vote, 2004.
Election night in Arkansas, 2004. The natural state goes red for George W. Bush, helping elect him to his second term in the White House. And like many other states that year, Arkansas asked voters to define marriage.
Marriage in Arkansas ought to be a man and a woman, and that's what the people have affirmed this evening.
We adopted a ban on same-sex marriage into the Arkansas Constitution in 2004 as part of that trend.
Fast forward to 2013, when the U.S. Supreme Court struck down part of the Defense of Marriage Act, the 1996 federal law that banned same-sex marriage. A move that UA Little Rock professor of law Joshua Silverstein says got the ball rolling everywhere.
And there was just an avalanche of litigation with the vast majority of courts around the country ruling that same-sex marriage was protected.
A year later in Arkansas, Pulaski County Circuit Court Judge Chris Piazza, amid lawsuits from local couples, ruled against the state's ban, calling it unconstitutional. And for the next 8 days, while the legal debates raged, the race to get married was on. County courthouses flooded with same-sex couples, not wanting to miss the chance to secure a legal marriage license, worried the window would close once again. But then on June 26, 2015, the fight at the state level became moot. In Obergefell v. Hodges, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the right to marry is guaranteed to same-sex couples under the Constitution.
When all Americans are treated as equal, we are all more free.
Stand up, fight back! Back to the present, where Pride Month brought hundreds of people out to Little Rock's Soma neighborhood in early June, including newlyweds Whitney Butler and Victoria Capek.
We felt a little fearful of what was going to happen.
As fiancés, they'd planned a small wedding ceremony for May. But months before, on the heels of the 2024 presidential election, Whitney says they felt the need to take a more proactive approach.
Should we go ahead and get married? Should we wait? So one random Friday afternoon, we met a judge in Benton and got married legally. We were like, this is not going to be our wedding date. This isn't going to be a day of an anniversary, but this is just going to be a day where we solidified the joy and kind of took ownership of the fear.
That fear of what could happen, even after a decade of marriage equality in the U.S., it's something Professor Silverstein says is not unfounded.
I think that Justice Thomas and Justice Alito would clearly vote to overturn Obergefell as soon as they get the chance to do so. The three liberals on the court definitely would not. What would the remaining four do? It's anybody's guess. But there are already states passing statutes and possibly some litigation that's begun to try to overturn Obergefell just the way they did Roe. So there's tremendous legal uncertainty, and the answer is we just don't know.
So in the meantime, Pride Month marches on, and it's clear that the fight, the riot for equality, is far from over.
Although it is so much fun to celebrate with each other and wear our rainbows and be proud, with the amount of people who are living fearfully, specifically Black and brown trans individuals, we still have so far to go, and that's what a reminder of Pride is.
Lauren Johnston, THV 11 News.
All right, looking ahead to your Monday, still tracking the threat of some spotty storms overnight into your Tuesday. Most of the day, however, is going to be impacted by that summer heat. Another heat advisory in effect tomorrow. We'll talk more about the details of that in the week ahead right after the break.
And one Arkansas man is looking to take his backyard baseball tournament to the national stage. The heartwarming story on his Field of Dreams coming up.